It's showtime.
All
Assalomu
right.
alaykum.
Assalam.
Assalomu alaykum hammaga. Birinchi o'rinda o'zbek tilida umumiy streamimiz haqida ma'lumot berib o'taman. Bugungi mehmonlarimiz Hassan Habib va Elbek Normurodov. Efirimizda xudo xolasa yaqin orada efirimizga sabab o'zi yaqin orada Mohir Devda C# .NET Framework bo'yicha kursimiz chiqadi. Bu bo'yicha Elbek o'zlarini ustozlari, mentorlari Hassan Habib bilan C# tili haqida .NET Framework va Hassan Habib asoslangan The Standard bo'yicha gaplashib o'tamiz. Ularning fikrlarini olamiz. Suhbatimiz ingliz tilida bo'ladi. Savollarni o'zbek tilida so'rashingiz mumkin. Biz tarjima qilib Hassandan so'rab javoblarni qoldiramiz va nasib qilsa juma kuni yana aynan shu Mohir Devga hozirlayotgan kurs haqida Elbekning o'zlari bilan ham o'zbek tilida efir bo'ladi. Hop. Unda Assalomu alaykum Hassan. How are you doing?
Assalam. How are you doing, brother Muhammad? How are you doing?
I'm fine, great, alhamdulillah. Shall we start by introducing you and Elbek?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Let's go with the important guy first. Let's go with Elbek first. He's the boss.
Okay, sure.
He's my boss. He tells me everything. Go ahead.
Okay. So do you want me to introduce myself or? Okay.
As you wish.
Okay. So hi guys, my name is Elbek, and I'm a software engineer and currently working for my ustaz Hassan Habib at PureSoft and Exadel. I'm currently working on .NET Practicum, which is the course that takes you from zero. So we hope you get till the internship level once you learn the course. And I'm a .NET developer looking forward to doing something good for the world. And yeah, says the stage is yours. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Hassan Habib. I am an engineer. I like to write software and like to, change the world one line of code at a time. I've been in the tech industry for almost 22 years now, and I am a part of so many different communities where we try to kind of evolve the engineering industry, and I'm super excited to be here.
Yes, thanks. So.
Thank you both. As an information for the viewers, Hassan is taking his time to be with us at night. Is it right?
Yeah, it's 12:21 a.m. now.
So we will try to use the time in the right way. So Elbek, I'll be monitoring the comments section and we'll be highlighting some comments. So you may start. I'm here.
Okay. So Stas, while I was doing the course, I tried to stick with the standard and show what I have learned from you as much as possible. And for the viewers, can you please explain what is the standard and how did it evolve over the course of your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So the standard is basically years and years of trying to make the software engineering industry, digestible and easy for people to kind of join in and be able to write software. There's a lot of people around the world who have a lot of great ideas. The people that I call the unknown geniuses. A very smart guy. They have ideas that they can change the world, but unfortunately, they get kind of repulsed and not feel invited into the tech industry, either because knowledge itself is presented in a very complicated way that is not so enticing for people to join in, or the people at work, or the people that the person is trying to work with, they might have a little bit of behavioral situations or behavioral characteristics that makes people not welcomed to work in the tech industry. When I was younger, I decided, I want to make, software engineering simple and predictable and beautiful and easy. And I decided to collect, the best practices that can make, building, turning an idea into a product, in a matter of days or, maybe months. It depends on how complex the idea is, something that anybody, anywhere can do. So we can get people from ideation to productization in as soon as fast and more predictable way possible. Uh, I want to add in that the standard is never final. It's always in draft mode. We're continuing to evolve it and continuing to change it. And the more and more people come into our community, the standard community, they continue to enrich and enhance the engineering standard and make it even more predictable, more easy, something that people can just pick up and run with, no matter what kind of background or experience they have.
Okay, thanks for explanation. Uh, is it is it tied to C Sharp or .NET only, or
Yeah, so when I first started writing the standard, I was actually more into Scala than .NET. I tried to simplify the engineering experience in general, regardless what the programming language is. This is software engineering, not coding or programming. This is, how you're going to design a system end to end, how you're going to,
Mm,
build the blocks, for a certain workflow, irregardless of what the technology is, which makes the standard timeless because technology
mm,
change standardizations and patterns, they don't. Mm.
mm.
At least not as
Okay,
often. Mm.
yes. So, um, what do you think? And a new, so do you think that a new buy to programming can just go ahead and uh, read the standard and start doing the code, or do you think there should be some level of experience to learn it?
So there is no experience required, right?
Mhm,
The standard is built on a universal philosophy, something that I call the tri-nature of everything. Every system out there is either a dependency or it contains dependencies, purposing, and exposure. That's everything, no matter what it is. People, animals, non-living things, no matter
mhm,
what, everything is a living thing, really. But from our perspective, and from that perspective, if you understand the tri-nature theory, the
mhm,
rest of the standard is just super predictable. Like the rest of the standard is saying, okay, here's how you build these integration pieces. We call brokers. Here's our services, here's our purposes, and then here's our exposure components, whether it's an API or a protocol or a controller API URL. So you don't have to have anything actually. I work with a lot of people that do not even come from an engineering background, people who are teachers, physicians, physics majors, people with PhD degrees. Some people are really, really far away. But the standard mandates communications. It mandates hard work, right? So it's not this magical wand that we're gonna just do
mhm,
this and boom, you're immediately a software engineer. It's gonna take time and effort and days and nights for you to kind of push through it. Even at this stage in my life and in my craft, I still spend hours and hours at night to make sure that I hone my craft and work really hard to change the world.
mhm. So yeah, so basically you need to be hardworking to learn the craft, and you look at the programming as a craft, right? It's interesting notion because most people look at it as a profession or job or anything, but it's the first time I heard you that this is a craft. Can you
Yes.
little bit explain more about this?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, there's a craft and there's a career, right?
yes, yes.
The career guy is the clock watcher, the guy that comes in at 9 and leaves at 5, and then they don't care really what happens next. They don't invest in their growth. They don't invest in their, skill set, right?
Mhm,
So that particular, so the careerists, like I call them, is a person that their knowledge is very dependent and limited by the 9 to 5 grind,
mhm,
right? And
mhm,
if they don't have the chance to learn something at work, then they're not going to learn it at all, right? These are what I call employees, right? But there's also engineers, right? And the engineers, the people that hone their craft, is someone that, it's like working out, right? You do it every day, weekends or not. you know, something that you practice, something that you really invest the time and effort in to make sure that it's better, right? And making something better is not a requirement in a 9 to 5 job. It's a requirement of a craftsman that wants to go out there and make their crafts better. A craft is something you're good at, whether you get paid for it or not, right? A career is something that you only do only as long as you get paid. If you don't get paid, you don't do it, right? Like imagine this, you know, just let's throw this situation. Let's say, you know, one day the world has changed so much that they said people who are singers, right, are going to be paid more than software engineers, right? No matter how bad your voice is, we're going to pay you more than software engineers. I predict at least 50 to 60%, maybe 70% of people that are software engineers today, software engineers, they'll just drop off and be like, I'm going to go chase the money, right? Um, I think that money in and of itself is not a purpose. If you have a good craft, you know, you will make a way out of it. You know, there's a lot of people that go and say, well, you know, arts and crafts doesn't really pay well, but you still have these people that sell, you know, paintings with millions and millions of dollars because they made it a passion, they made it a craft. You know, money is just a side effect of your success and a side effect of your craft, not the other way around.
I got it. Thank you. So, yeah. So I have a couple of friends, you know, they want to hop into programming because right now in Uzbekistan, everybody is talking about programming, how cool they are, how much money they make. And I have, you know, since I have started learning about the standard, I realized that you don't see the fruit of your code right away. So you
Yep.
need to work hard. You need to
Yep.
write a couple of more lines of code rather than, for example, if you are doing some front end job where you can see the visualization of your work right away, relatively right away.
Yep.
Is it a good fit for such of my friends to hop into this course or learn about the standard and spend some time learning it? So what do you think about that?
Being good at anything requires you to be patient and persistent, right? You won't always see the fruit right away, but you know, just very recently I started, you know, advocating a horizontal delivery pattern where, you know, just build just enough on the back end and then just enough in the middle where it depends on how complex the system is, right? If the system is extremely complex, you might not
Yes.
see an outcome until a while into, you know, the program, and that's just part of any software development project. The average time that a proper software development project takes is between 18 months and 3 years, because that's the time you want to put in to actually get something off the ground. Some of the games, you know, game developers, they take 5 to 6 to 7 years, you know, to get something out the door because you want to do something perfect, something that actually is timeless and something that works, right? Anything else below that, you know, is just a business driven, not passion or craft driven, you know, development, which inevitably will result in a very poor system. Just to think about it this way, you know, if you are a careerist, you know, then all that you need to do is just to convince the customer to pay money, even if your product is bad and you know that it's bad. If you're a software craftsman, you care as much about the front end and the user experience as much as the engineering experience because you're actually selling a good product, right? Something that can actually live and be maintainable and actually can withstand the test of time for sure.
Okay. So
I have one question about this topic. So here in Uzbekistan, the IT, the programming sphere is becoming more common in the last, let's say, 5 years. And the people are mostly being interested because of the salary of the programmers have and the time they spend, the little time they spend on the work, and most of the people are fantasizing that they'll be going through one course, let's say from 3 months to 1 year. They'll finish the course, they'll learn everything, and then their career will be
Elon
smooth.
Musk, as soon as you finish the course.
Yeah. The situation is like that, or some people are because of seeing the PR or marketing stuff, they are thinking about changing their careers from other jobs, and they have only very limited time to learn. And as it is new to our people, their parents, maybe their spouses or their friends will be asking them, how long are you going to learn this stuff? Don't you go out and find a job? Or what are you doing? What are you learning? This kind of thing is becoming more common. I also had this kind of situation in our house. So they were asking, how long are you going to learn? When will you go out and earn money? What are your thoughts about this? The time limit of learning programming to change the career to earn money, and then there are other people, mostly the youth, who are studying at school, and they have a lot of time until they are required to earn money.
Yeah, so that's a great question, actually. It depends. If you have enough time, take your time to perfect your craft, before you kind of engage, so you can actually be in a place that is worth its, the skill set that you invested in. If you are someone who is, already have commitments and have family and have, people that are that you have to look after, dependents in general, you might be able to get a quick job, like kind of doing. I remember a point in time where, I had to walk like a long distance. I think it was like 4 or 5 miles every day, just, to, as a contractor, to get paid by the hour. And most of the time I was just fixing bugs and trying to do things. But while I was doing that, I decided that I wanted to change the tech industry forever. So I went out there and started writing the standard. There's nothing wrong with trying to support your family, but if this is where you're going to be the next 10 years, 20 years, then there's a big problem, right? That means that you're not evolving, you're not growing. At work as an engineering manager at Microsoft, I make it a fundamental delivery, your growth. Are you still the same person from last quarter, right? Are you still taking the exact same time to deliver the same type of task? If that's true, then you're not fully invested into what's actually going on. You're not really all in, right? So get a job, get a quick job, pay for your family if you have family, but don't just stop there. Some people just go to work, come home, be like, oh, I'm so tired. I don't want to do anything. And 10 years passes by, 20 years passes by. I've seen some people that worked at the same place for 35 years, right? And they don't know anything. All that they know is that these are the folks that I call code monkeys. You just tell them what they do and they just go do it. They don't understand why or where or what they need to do about it. All that they know is that I just do what I'm being told, right? Don't be that guy. That would be a big problem. You'll never be an engineer if you follow that kind of mindset.
So Muhammad, do you have any questions?
And then
I see someone like in the comment section. Were you guys? What was the question? How much they pay me? They'll pay you enough to get all the toys that you want. I get asked that question all the time. By the way, like when there's this program called Nepris, right? And this program is that I sit down with high school students and stuff like that, right? And they ask me that question all the time. How much do they pay you? And I'm like, enough for you to buy whatever toys you want. I'll just say that. Okay?
That was unexpected. Yeah. Okay.
See all the toys? You get to buy all these toys. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. And so you said that the learners or the new programmers should allocate time to evolve into a better programmer. And then let's say as a programmer, as programming is mostly learned in self-study method, let's say programmers in one team, each of them, they have a very different roadmap or way of learning. So let's imagine a person who has learned on offline course or video course or anything like that, and they want to evolve to that software engineer level stage. What should they do? Are there any kind of universal stages or rules?
Yeah, so I had that question myself, right? So a couple of years ago, I wrote an article called, Coders, Programmers, Developers, and Engineers, right? And I talked exactly about these stages. So let me kind of share my screen. I want to show people something so they understand. This is going to change maybe how you see things, and how the tech industry
Okay.
evolves. I will I will share. Let's see. I will share my screen here. And I want everyone watching us and hope people, watching this recording to kind of understand this is really important. You better listen up. They won't teach you that in college. You won't see that anywhere because I literally just invented it. So hear me out here. Okay. How does it start? Everybody starts a coder, right? Someone who knows how to write hello world, right? And this is
Mm.
all you know, right? Oh, hello world, maybe for loop. Oh, you're gonna call your friends and be like, oh my God, look, I wrote a program that prints numbers from 0 to 10 or something like that, right? Great. You evolve from that stage into something that is called a programmer because you'll hear people throwing these terms around, but what do they really mean, right? So, what is a programmer? A programmer is someone who can develop a component, right? So, there's a little bit more than just writing a function. They can write a class, right? A class that is student and it has an ID and name, and maybe the student speaks and eats food and does stuff, right? You evolve from a programmer into something called a developer. And this developer is a person that can connect multiple classes to each other, right? So maybe the student service is calling a student broker, and maybe there's an API controller. So now you're building this, whole holistic thing. Okay. So now you know how to talk to have a bunch of things talking to each other. You evolve from there into what I call an engineer. And this engineer guy is a person that doesn't just know how to build services, he connects these services to each other, right? See how the evolution, of growth as a software engineer goes, right? So a guy here that writes hello world, this guy here writes one class, this guy here can write multiple classes talking to each other, which is a service, and then this guy is basically building distributed systems, distributed, enterprise level systems that talk to each other, UI, backend, front end, all the 9 yards. Okay, what goes above that? There's actually a level above that, right? Which is what I call entrepreneurial innovative engineer, right? Entrepreneurial innovative engineer. And these guys are the guys that actually run the world today. These are the
Mm.
founders of startups. These are the Elon Musks and, Zuckerbergs. And these people are people that can write software, but on top of that, they have entrepreneurial skill set. And on top of that, they have innovation. So what they basically do, they come up with an idea and then they engineer it and then they go into the market to sell it, right?
Mm.
That's the end to end, right? So unless you start understanding how to go from one stage to the other, some people spend their entire lives being coders. And I've seen them, right? Years and years and years of their lives. They're just a coder, right? They'll be really great at solving a complexity and optimizing one method, but they have absolutely no idea where that method belongs and where it's gonna, land and stuff like that. Some people spend a whole lot of time here, some people spend a whole lot of time here, and then eventually, some crazy guy like myself will come in and be like, hey, you're not actually growing, you're not
Mm.
actually evolving, right? Let me tell you where you are and where you're supposed to be, right? I tried to standardize this as much as I can. So I wrote a system called getFile. What getFile is a system that basically goes and says, let me see what you've completed and contributed, and I will tell you where you are. So let me try to share my screen here for, let's see. So if I go into, sorry, I'll be jumping back and forth between screens because if I share my entire desktop, you won't be able to see anything, right? So let's just
Okay,
go
okay,
over there.
that's fine.
You see the monitor behind me. Do you really want me to share this whole thing with you? You're not going to be able to see anything. So, okay, so let's just take a look at, the About Us section. So here's the deal. So here's all the tasks that a software development project could possibly need, right? From infrastructure to provisioning to data, all the way down to kind of design and standardization and even business effort, because I'm trying to push you into being an entrepreneurial, innovative engineer. And then every one of these stages that I just talked about, I literally just talked about all of these, you know, in that there's innovative engineers, there's entrepreneurial engineers, and then there are these guys. These guys are the guys that these are the Tony Starks of the world, right? These are the people that are actually moving things around, right? You'll see a lot of engineers come out there and they say things like, "Oh, you know, oh look, I built this amazing library," right? And I'm like, "Great, what are we gonna do next?" Right? No, that's it. That's my whole purpose. I built a library, and now everybody go out there and use it. Unless you are connected to reality and connected to the market, and unless you can actually make a real change into people's lives, whatever you're doing is just dreams. Okay. Okay. Uh, why? So I don't know. There's questions. I don't know. Anyway, yeah.
So does Git file mean that if I learn that standard, maybe read your book or watch your videos or watch some of my videos, so if the person learns the standard and tries to contribute to some of the projects, he will be seen, right?
Yes,
Does
it
it
will be
mean that,
visible. I will be able to pull them into projects. What we're trying to do, you know, as you may know, right, we are, um, what we're trying to do is to basically allow everyone to have an opportunity for growth, right? So I built this Git file to tell you where you are. Like if you look at my own profile right now, I can tell where my investment is. I can tell where my growth is. What do I need to invest in? Here's my own personal profile on Git file. And I look at this chart here and it tells me, hey, Hassan, you're doing a lot of infra, but very little controllers, very little acceptance tests. This is actually true. Like, I don't even remember the last time. When was the last time I've actually ran an acceptance test? It'll even tell me in terms of time. See, back in 2021, it's been a year, right, since the last time I actually put on at least in the public GitHub, right?
yes.
So you need that kind of, you know, stay up to date with things. The system will literally tell you your pulse and heartbeat, and then we'll try to grow all of these muscles, these skill sets, you know, to make sure. But then it'll go and say, here's opportunities for you. Like here's opportunities for you to contribute to any of these projects, right? You can go out there and click on the opportunity, and it's going to take you to the open source repository that is actually requesting this opportunity, right? Muhammad asked a very good question. He said to me, Hassan, you know, what is, you know, how do people learn? How do people get there? You'll see that I try to provide people as much different ways of learning. Like some people learn by, you know, looking at someone else's code, right? Some people will learn by reading a chapter in a book. They like the theory part. Some people will learn by watching a YouTube video, right? And some people don't want any of that. Some people want to basically go and say, I want to learn by asking questions directly, and that'll just take you back to me, right? You'll be able to go and say, I want to ask the guy himself, right? What is this all about? This is me going and saying, whatever your method of learning is, I am there for you. I will look at the type of the task, and then I'll go and tell you, here's a book, here's code, here's video, and here's me. You know, the only thing, the fifth thing that I still haven't discovered yet is to understand it for people. They're going to have to understand it themselves, because I can tell you things, but whether you understand it or not, we don't have the technology.
Yeah, sure. So, mind blown. Elbek showed that Git file previously to me, and I didn't get it well at that time. Now I can imagine how it was difficult to gather everything, and you are saying that the Git file will monitor everything on GitHub, but the situation is, unfortunately, most students, new programmers aren't ready for that kind of, let's say, contribution. Not ready in the terms of technical knowledge. What should they have as a recommendation or prerequisites to be able to contribute to those?
So the very basic minimum basic cable is to know C#. a programming language. It doesn't have to be C#. Could be any other programming language. It depends on the opportunity. Most of our projects, they are .NET, but the standard is not really tied up to .NET, so at least know how to, write code in general, regardless what this code is. Excuse it. So if you know how to write a programming language, then you need to read the standard, right? The standard is an introduction. It literally walks you through why we're building components. Instead of going and telling people, oh, like every other programming book that you'll see out there, it will walk you through all the data types, and then it's made and written for a computer scientist, not for a software engineer, right? A computer. This is why they're very, very confusing. Like if you look at any book, like your C# Yellow Book or any book out there, it'll be like, here's all the types, here's all the operations, that's more like it's more like a reference than an actual book, right? But I'm trying to take software engineering. I'm starting with the people and working my way back into technology by basically going and saying, here is the 3 components in the universe that you need to implement to build any system, no matter what this system is. And then I basically walk people through, here's how you talk to a database, here's how to do validation, business logic, and here's how you expose that work to the outside world. Now you can hit the market within a couple of months. You can literally build an API and go say, I have a great idea. The idea here is to allow people to materialize their ideas in terms of the software market as soon as fast as possible. That's the entrepreneurial side of engineering, right? So instead of sitting for years and years telling people, well, you don't know internationalization and optimization and all of these big words that people do all the time, I'm basically going and saying, okay, whose life have you impacted today with this code? So you see, the mindset here is different. Instead of going from the machine and maybe by accident you go into changing people's lives, you're actually starting with people and working your way back into the code.
I have.
And then,
okay, go ahead, brother.
Elbek, you may go.
Yeah, this is very interesting topic. So we have over here one practice. Most of the time, some educational systems or teachers try to, when they're teaching new boys the programming, they want their students to learn how the computer thinks. They say and they have some mechanisms for it as well. So they start, if you want to be a backend developer, they recommend C or C++. This yeah. What do you think about this? So
absolute waste of time. Nobody does that today. You will spend years and years getting like a 5-year degree, and as soon as you join a real company, that writes real software, none of that will be used unless you want to work for NASA or, build microprocessors. Again, software engineering today is being taught as science, not as a craft. And if you teach it as science, good luck being at the university, having, these, arguments over theoretical things and, how many ticks the processor needs, and whether you are an architecture on x86 or, x64, you will never use that unless you are working at NASA or one of these, more sophisticated companies, which is basically a handful of people that actually are even interested in doing something like that. Listen, guys, what's the most popular mobile app in the world today? TikTok, right? It literally just took over Google as the most visited website worldwide, right? If I go and ask you today, can you build a TikTok? Or do you have what it takes to build a TikTok? I can assure you today 100,000% that at least 99.999% of the people that are building TikTok don't care and don't know about whether an unsigned integer can work the same on an x64 or x86. Nobody cares about that. Nobody cares. We're past that age, right? I still have people spending years learning assembly. And I'm like, son, why are you learning that? Well, the professor said that this is what we need to learn. For what? It's useless. You know what I mean? Not that it's a bad thing to go look it up and learn it, but I want you to start from the people and work your way back into what technology you need to learn to get into that stage, right? Listen, let me ask you this. We use keyboards, we use mice every day. We We use the mouse every day. There's so much. I can spend 10 years just researching and learning the science that makes a wireless mouse work with laser and all that, right? Do I need to know that to use a mouse? No, I don't, right? I use this mouse to go get something out the door. Did everyone who developed this mouse knows the science behind it? No, they don't. They just have a standard and they go and say, this is what we need to develop to get the next generation of mice out the door, right? This is why Logitech is very successful because they have very specific. I was just going through the standard documentation of NASA, right? And they're also very straightforward. They say, you are a manager, engineering manager, you're a software engineer, you're a program manager. Here's what you need to do. That's all, and that's it. Try to get the best return of investment on your time. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay,
And
got it.
recently, I got across one article where it says that most of the coding schools are teaching Java. Java does not, let's say, expose some details of programming without knowing those details. Let's say he mentioned pointers and the stuff like that. I don't know what are they. And he's saying that you are more being like a copycat programmer. You do not understand it well enough, so you should somehow know those in-depth, or let's say more machine code near languages. What's your take on that?
Yikes. I'll tell you this, when you hang out with a bunch of smart people, just try to imitate them, even if you don't understand what they're doing. And then enough time you're imitating them, you're going to start asking questions of, why are they doing that? Can I make it better? Right? How did we all learn soccer? Do people like soccer in Uzbekistan? Football?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we call it football.
Football, right? How do you learn it? You just see the kids playing or you see it on TV and then you go do like them, right? And then you get really good at it. You start making your own moves, right? Maybe you have this way of hitting the ball to make it do a curve or something, right? You don't really have to learn physics to know how the ball
Yeah,
flies.
surely.
Oh,
You don't have to know how the ball was built to know how to play ball. I don't think, what's his name? Who's the cool guy these days? The Cristiano Ronaldo or something?
yeah.
I think if you go ask him about, physical phenomenon and how to make the ball curve, he probably doesn't know how, right?
Yeah.
And somehow he's more popular than the clown that's sitting in the university for 20 years trying to figure it out because it doesn't have any impact, right? If you become impact-driven engineer, people-driven engineer, market-driven engineer, you drive the market instead of being market-driven. You're going to get your head out of that box, due to the style of education. I think software engineering is being taught very, very, very wrong.
Mm.
And then I understand it like this. As you mentioned, the football example. So if you are interested in football, you just go out there to the stadium, to the pitch, and kick the ball. And then after some time, you may, if you want to get professional, there are some schools professional that you teach that teach you about the health of the player and how to keep the stamina and anything like that. And does it mean in programming there are things called object-oriented programming, design patterns? So you just start by doing something, create something, and as you go along, you just go get some book or any kind of source, learn some about OOP, and then you will be continuing on learning.
Yep, you got to start as a coder. Everyone should start as a coder. You know what the coder is? The kid that goes out on the street and kicks the ball with the other kids. He doesn't know the rules. He doesn't know, referee. He doesn't know he needs to wear certain shoes. Doesn't care about any of that. Let me just kick the ball. That's a coder. And then you get a little bit higher. You go into a programmer and start saying, hey, wait a second. I need to build my class to understand what dependency injection is. And then you go into a developer where you go and say, what is a bunch of classes are supposed to look like? And then an engineer supports multiple system across to kind of, support system. I don't want people, I want people, here's one big problem I hear people say, and people need to stop with that. Stop saying front end, back end, middleware engineer. You're an engineer. You go build solution to fulfill a requirement, whether it needs to be on the front, back, and the middle. Quit with this back end, front end stuff. Quit that. Do you know why people say back end, front end stuff? So they can pay you less. Be like, well, you don't have the back end experience, so we're just going to pay you 75, right? And then the back end guy is also being told the same thing. Well, you don't have the front end experience, right? But if you go in and say, I am an engineer, give me a problem, I'll go solve it, whether it needs back end data processing or front end, now they don't have an excuse, right? So they have to come back with a full stack engineer. And even the guys that know how to develop systems end to end, do you know what they tell them? You go to some companies and they say, listen, I know how to build back end, front end, database, everything. They're going to say, well, but you don't know DevOps, so you're not really full stack engineer. At this point in time, if I see some job description, a full stack engineer now at this point in time, based on these descriptions, is an entire IT department, all of them, including the guy who makes the coffee and tea, including the guy who prints. I feel like even if you know all these skill sets, be like, but you don't know accounting. We need someone who knows accounting to be a real full stack engineer. Screw all of that. Throw all of that away. Stay with the market. How many people have you impacted with your code today? Start from there. Walk up. Here's my advice. Walk up to someone, your next door neighbor. Maybe they have a grocery store or something, and tell them, hey, how can I help you? I'm going to build you a system for free. How can I help you to develop a website or a mobile app, desktop app for you that will help you do your groceries, right? And from that, you're actually starting to become an entrepreneurial, innovative engineer. And you're going to go through that stack from coder all the way up to entrepreneurial, innovative engineer in no time, especially if you follow the standard. Sorry, I get a little bit too excited, but yeah, that's all I know.
If I understood it right, working by putting people first will be showing you where you should continue or develop your knowledge, and then your learning path will be learning speed. I think will be a lot more. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially if you have focused learning, and that's what the standard's trying to do. The standard goes and says, wait a second, you didn't do any acceptance tests in a while. You're lacking in that area, right? Wait a second, you didn't. But what's an acceptance test? What's a back end? What's front end? What's services? Yes, I agree 100%. You have to be able to focus. I think they just cancel all of these programming courses and just people should follow the standard and use GetFile. It's free. It'll always be free.
Yeah.
That's the only way I can bring you to the market.
So I'm showing the standard GitHub repos links in here. What was your question, Elbek?
I have a wrap-up question. Once we get to the end, I'm going to ask that. So, do you have any more questions to Ustaz?
I have one question to Ustaz Hassan. So, let's say, when I speak about programming to my family members or friends, I try to explain it in different ways. Let's say I write code, I do this, and then in the end, they don't have that kind of clear picture of what programmer or who the programmer is. And I have that kind of question for the standard. What is the standard in technical terms, I may say, or what people should imagine when they hear hear about the standard?
The standard is the manual of success for everyone who's interested in building software. Okay, the manual of success. What that basically means is that when you buy a TV or a new washing machine, right, you need to look at the manual to know how to use it. There are programs that you need to use. The standard is this: it walks you through only the things that you need to learn to become the most successful software engineer in the history of man. Now, because the standard is the same for everyone, the only thing that gives advantage for people is how fast they can learn and how hard they can work and how much love they have in their hearts. People differentiate there, right? So you will see an engineer that, joins in, they have a lot of eagerness, they're very smart, but they're lazy. They don't want to put hard work into it, right? And then you have someone who's really strong, but they take a little bit of time to understand things. And I also saw someone who's smart and strong, but they don't have love and passion in their heart, right? These are the folks that are only, I call them paid engineer. Paid engineer is basically they will only work if you put quarters in their heads, like the phones back from the day. If you put quarters in, and then when the quarters run out, he goes like this. I can't work anymore, right? These are also folks that they need to find their purpose and passion. Um, and then there are those ones who have hearts like beacons of light. They basically they're they're invincible engineers, right? They have power in the heart, power in the mind, and power in the body. Young, smart, fast engineers that just take in the standard and hold on to it. And these guys are the guys that are posed to inherit the earth, because these are the guys that are going to go build the next generation of software. Remember, software continues to become more and more complex as more it gets engaged into our lives, right? We're trying, we have code running on Mars and code running in the moon. Imagine one little line of code that could go wrong. It could cost someone their lives. It could cause us billions and billions of dollars of investments, right? We need real engineers, not clock watchers. We need software craftsmen. We don't want careerists and people who work with the quarters.
I see.
Thanks a lot.
So
Your question, Elbek?
yeah, I had a question. So so we are approaching the time. I know it's late for Ustaz, and the question I have, what advice do you have for an ordinary Uzbek person, for a young person who wants to learn the programming and find their way in this field?
I'll tell you this, our grandfathers were programmers. Believe it or not, they were software engineers. The only difference is that they were using physical things to develop systems, right? Our great grandfathers, they would go and say, well, we could tie the donkey in like this circle thing, and the donkey runs with that, and it generates energy, and it does the wheat and the seeds and stuff like that. That's automation. They just didn't know computers. There were no computers back then. So what they did is said, okay, if I tie the animal and give the animal food and keep the animal running in the circle, it will generate energy for me to kind of do the wheat and stuff like that. That's software engineering. That's just system design, right? The only difference is that today we're making a piece of metal do that instead of having an animal do that, right? It's pretty much the same thing. What we're basically saying, and this is why, like, believe it or not, as humanity in general, we have become really more lazy and more kind of comfortable because things are getting automated all the way around us. But you have to stay grounded. You have to remember that there's a lot more to be done. If it takes years and years for people to kind of be able to find a cure for cancer or a cure for some, fatal disease, then we're not there yet. If you're a software engineer today and you think the job is done, you couldn't be more wrong, right? There are people that are dying every day because we have failed to come up with systems that can save these people's lives. I'll give you an example. In India, right, there's a mass population, 1 point something billion people, right? And people who have, a problem with their eyes, potentially having a disease in their eyes, right? They need to wait for months and months and months to be able to be examined by a doctor because there's a long line of people, right? So by the time they get to the doctor, it's too late. The eye is gone, right? So what did people do to do that? They developed an AI-based system that has a camera in it, and people just put their eyes there, and the AI system runs the examination and determines immediately whether this is a critical case or not. They saved millions of people's eyes from going blind. That's software engineering, right? That's impacting people's lives now, here and today. Not freaking learning assembly and sitting there and being like, whoa, look, I made it execute in 1 second instead of 2 seconds. I'm like, oh, thank God. Hallelujah. Oh my God, you changed the world. You didn't do nothing, right? So.
Yeah, that was awesome. And I learned I learned a lot, actually.
Yeah.
So
I
do
also
you have any?
I was also mind blown by hearing about the goals that we should have and the standard itself, its focus, its aims. I was glad I am glad I could make it to the stream.
Yeah, pleasure to
Thank
be
you very
here,
much.
brother. It's always fun to see people and connect with people. We are connected at heart. Someone out there decided to build StreamYard so we can do something like that. What is the next thing? My question for everybody watching this. What are you gonna do now? Go out there and do something useful with your life. Life is very limited and very finite. Please don't waste your time learning something that you're not going to use. If you don't know what you're going to be using, if you don't know what is the most important thing, I'm right here. Just reach out. Say me like, hey Hassan, I'm learning XOR in Java. I don't know if even James Gosling himself, the guy who invented Java, he said, I don't know why we implemented XOR. There's no use for it. We didn't do anything with it. Pleasure to meet you all, of course, as usual.
Thank you very much, Stas.
Yeah.
We are looking for future collaboration. I'm very, very hopeful there will be an army of developers who learn the standard and will try their best to impact the world and to help you out with some of the open source projects that you do.
I appreciate that, and I hope so. We're here, we're teaching people things. We don't want it. I don't want anything from anyone. Elbek, this more than anyone. We help countless number of people, and then they take that knowledge and they go be successful everywhere, literally everywhere, every corner on earth that I know of, from Australia to England, from China all the way down to Latin America. We have people contacting us from every corner that you can imagine on earth to kind of build their systems, right? If you believe in what I just said to you, right, and follow the standard, right, and support it. So don't be a programmer for hire, for sale. Hold up to your standards, because you will work in places where people go and say, we know that it's the right thing to do, but we're going to come back to it and fix it later. There's no later. Okay, do it right or don't do it at all. Hold on to your principles and standards and go out there and change the world, put a dent in the universe. All right, peeps. Cool.
Thank you very much.
Do I have a deed? I think I woke up my kids yelling. But anyway, I'll talk to you guys later. Okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate
Thanks
you all.
a lot.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Taking your time.
Appreciate it. Take care. Bye.
Bye. Wow. maza qildim Elbek. Haqiqatda anaqa. Boshida mo'ljal qanaqa edi, shu standart texnik tomonga ketamiz degan tasavvur bor edi-da. Chunki hozirgi aytgan narsalarni, detallarini bilmas edim. Endi nasib bo'lsa, bu hozir suhbatimiz ingliz tilida bo'ldi. Aytganimdek e'lon qilgan edim kanalda, juma kuni ham kursimizni taqdimoti bo'ladi deb. Qo'ldan kelgancha o'shanda bir harakat qilib ko'ramiz. Bu yerdagi berilgan yaxshi tavsiyalarni yana eslab o'tishga, xudo xolasa. Bizani kuzatuvchilardan, mana jonli efirda kuzatayotganlar, keyin zapisini, ya'ni yozib olingan variantini ko'rayotganlardan so'raymiz. Juma kungacha savollarni tayyorlab qo'yinglar. Biz u payt xudo xolasa qo'ldan kelgancha ma'lumot berib, aynan shu hozirgi ko'rib chiqqan masalamiz, ustoz Hassanni The Standard loyihalari, asoslangan loyihalari, undan tashqari shu C#.net ekotizimini o'zi haqida va bu borada Elbek nimalarni tayyorladilar, xudo xolasa platformamizdagi o'quvchilar nimalar kutyapti, ular haqida ham gaplashib olamiz. Sizga ham katta rahmat Elbek, ustozni rozi qilib streamga chaqirganingizga. Xudo xolasa yana xabarlashamiz. Juma kuni efirimiz bor. .NET developer praktikum bo'yicha. Bugun bo'lsa, xudo xohlasa kechki payt QA praktikum bo'yicha ham efir bo'ladi. Yaxshilikda ko'rishaylik. Katta rahmat.
Rahmat hammaga. Assalomu alaykum.
Va alaykum assalom.